Hello and welcome. We're going to jump right in and master 25 new vocabulary words that are really going to give you an edge on your tests. Let's get started.
All right, so here they are, the 25 words we're going to get down today. Now, that might look like a huge list, but don't worry. We're not going to just go through them one by one. We're going to break them down into smaller, easier-to-remember groups. Sound good? Okay, so our first group of words, it's all about describing people. You know, their personalities, how they act. We're going to talk about good people, bad people, and, well, people who are just kind of boring.
All right, let's kick things off with two really useful words for boring. First up, on the left, you've got pedantic. A pedantic person is boring because they are just trying so hard to sound super smart. You know the type? They get stuck on tiny, unimportant rules or details. Then, on the right, we have pedestrian. This one just means dull, ordinary, with no imagination. A really easy way to remember this is to think about walking, a pedestrian activity. It's super common and ordinary, right? So a professor's lecture might be pedantic, but a movie with a totally predictable story, that's pedestrian.
Next up, we have Philistine. A Philistine is basically someone who just doesn't get or appreciate things like art, music, or literature. So if you have a friend who says museums are a total waste of time, or that classical music is just a bunch of noise, you could totally call them a Philistine. They just don't have a taste for cultural or intellectual stuff.
Now, this slide is great because it shows two really different kinds of bad attitudes. Over on the left, we have petulant. This describes someone acting like a spoiled child, right? They get all cranky and rude when they don't get exactly what they want. But on the right, peremptory is totally different. That's more like a demanding, bossy person. They give you an order and they expect you to do it right away, no questions. A peremptory tone is super bossy and, yeah, dictatorial.
Okay, a perfunctory action. This is something you do just to get it over with. There's no passion, no real care or effort. Think about it. If you shake someone's hand really fast without even looking at them, that's a perfunctory handshake. Or imagine a student giving a perfunctory answer in class. They're really just saying anything to get the teacher to stop asking them questions. So here we've got a really interesting contrast. On the left, penitent. To be penitent means you feel genuinely sorry for something you did wrong. So you could say something like, the thief was penitent for his crimes. But on the right, we have philanthropy. This is all about doing good things for other people, usually by giving money. And here's a fantastic memory trick. The root phil means love, and anthrope means mankind. So philanthropy is literally the love of mankind. See? Two totally different moral ideas. Now, this word pious is a little bit tricky, so pay attention here. It really has two different flavors. On the one hand, it can be a positive thing. It can describe someone who is truly, deeply religious. You might say, my aunt is a very pious woman. Simple enough. However, it can also be used in a negative way, to talk about someone who just pretends to be all moral and religious to look good, but secretly, they're not. They're a hypocrite. All right, let's move on to our second group. This section is all about words that describe bad actions, everything from tiny mistakes to really serious crimes. Okay, so let's compare two different kinds of sins here. First, a peccadillo. This is just a tiny, unimportant mistake, like maybe you ate a cookie before dinner when you weren't supposed to. That's a peccadillo. It's no big deal. Perfidy, though? Whoa. That is a massive, terrible act of betrayal. Think of a spy who sells his country's secrets to the enemy. That is an act of perfidy. It's a really deep and serious kind of treachery. Perjury is a very specific legal crime. Okay, so when you're in a courtroom, you have to promise to tell the truth, right? You swear an oath. Well, if you then lie on purpose, you have just committed perjury. And it's a major crime. Because, the whole justice system falls apart if people can't be trusted to tell the truth. Something that is pernicious is extremely harmful, but often in a sneaky, slow kind of way. You don't always notice the damage right away. A pernicious rumor, for example, can slowly, bit by bit, destroy someone's reputation. The harm isn't instant, but in the end, it's very, very bad. Okay, for our third group, we're looking at words that are all about motion, how things spread, how they travel, and how they relate to a central idea. So these two words, permeate and pervade, they seem really similar, but there's a key difference. Permeate means to pass through something. Imagine light coming through a curtain. The light permeates the fabric. Pervade, on the other hand, means to spread all throughout something until it's everywhere. Think of a strong smell filling up a room. That smell pervades the room. So remember, permeate goes through, pervade fills up.
This is another fantastic contrast. The periphery is the outer edge of something. So if we're talking about a problem, the little unimportant details are on the periphery. But something that is pertinent, well, that is super relevant and important, it's right at the center of the issue. This is a great word for you guys. When you're writing an essay for a test, you have to make sure you only include pertinent information.
A peripatetic person is someone who is always on the move, always traveling from one place to another. It's often used to describe someone whose job makes them travel all the time, like a traveling salesperson or maybe a consultant who flies to a different city every week. They live a peripatetic lifestyle.
Okay, perennial. A perennial flower is one that comes back every single year, right? So we use this word to describe anything that lasts a long time or just keeps happening again and again. And here's an awesome way to remember it. The root per means through, and annis, like in annual, means year. So something perennial lasts through the years. For example, a lack of parking is a perennial problem at my university. It just never goes away.
All right, we're on to our final group. Let's wrap up with some words that describe more abstract concepts. Things like likes and dislikes, feelings, rules, and benefits.
If you have a penchant for something, it means you have a really strong liking for it. It's more than just a passing interest. It's almost like a habit. You could say, he has a penchant for telling bad jokes. It's this thing he just loves to do over and over. Okay, here are 2 more P words for feelings. First, to be pensive means you're kind of lost in thought, but often in a quiet, maybe even a little sad way. You might see someone looking out a window with a pensive expression on their face. Perturb, on the other hand, is a verb. To perturb someone means to really upset or worry them. So you could say, the loud, strange noise from the basement started to perturb everyone in the house. So, a perquisite. This is a special benefit or extra thing you get because of your job that isn't your salary. And the best way to remember it is that it's often shortened to perk. It's a job perk. Getting a company car is an amazing perquisite. It's one of those extra nice things that comes with the job.
Okay, everyone, listen up for this next one, peruse, because this is a super common mistake. A lot of people think peruse means to read something quickly, to just skim it. Nope, it means the exact opposite. To peruse a document means to read it very, very carefully, looking at every single detail. A lawyer will peruse a contract before signing it. This is a huge one to remember for your tests, so don't get it mixed up. A pejorative term, that's just a fancy way of saying a word or phrase that's used as an insult. It's meant to show disapproval or contempt. It's a negative word. For example, calling someone who is very careful with their money a cheapskate is using a pejorative. It's meant to be a negative description. And to wrap things up, let's think about this question. Look back at all these new words we've just covered. Which one do you think is the most relevant, the most pertinent to your studies right now? Thinking about how these words actually connect to your own life is really the best way to make them stick. You guys did some great work today.